So, hey! It's a really packed house. I think you guys really care about the
You guys
subject.
know where you're at? You know what session you're in?
Everyone?
Yeah, I just want to make sure. I don't want
Alright.
to disappoint anyone.
So just to kick it off, my name is Christine Sourant and Tim, actually. And my first startup company was Vendetti, which connects travelers to street markets. But today I actually run tech summits in emerging markets around the world. So you can find me at globalstartupecosystem.com. But we're here to hear from Eurie Kim, and I'll let her give a brief intro about what she does.
Thanks, Christine. So, hi everyone. I'm Eurie. I'm a general partner at Forerunner Ventures. We are an early stage venture firm in San Francisco that invests in commerce. Pretty much anything that involves selling a product, a service, an experience to a consumer, whether that's a end-to-end consumer or a business consumer.
Awesome. And so as you guys are aware, fundraising 101, how to speak to an investor. You actually got pitched on over here. So it was like a perfect plug-in for this conversation.
Where's Alice and Candace? Yeah.
Yes, we were calling you guys out.
So they followed up
Up the
on this
escalator.
escalator and started pitching us. Plug and play, everybody. Women who are in, starting their own companies, you should all founders at plugandplay.com. There you go.
See, it actually worked.
Got to hustle. That's how you pitch an investor.
So I guess let's just start with that conversation. I think just opening the ice. How should someone approach you? Should they just start pitching? Should they start speaking? Should they ask what you're all about? How do people approach you?
So has everyone else tried to meet somebody at a bar? Right? You don't just go in and be real hardcore about it and be like, hey, I'm doing this. My name is this. I do this. You gotta kind of break the ice a little bit. First of all, what context are you in? Are you in my office? Are we on an escalator, girls? Are we at an event? I think that it's really funny because a lot of times founders think that it's really hard to talk to investors, but it really is just hard to talk to people about something that you're doing and you don't know who the other person is across the room from you or across the seat from you. And so you're trying to understand what's the connection here and why will this person care about what I'm talking about? And so if you can just step away from the fact that you're the founder and I'm the investor and just two people trying to share a conversation about something and hopefully trying to connect, I think you're going to start the conversation on a better footing. So, don't talk at me, because if you've been talking for 5 minutes and I haven't said anything, I'm just wondering if you're breathing. It's really hard to even absorb information when you just talk at somebody. So, we'll go into some of the specifics, but in general, I would start with the fact that we are people too, and we get talked at all day long. I go home, and my poor husband wants to talk to me, and I'm like, honey, no. We are not talking, and you're not pitching me an idea from Shark Tank, which he always does, so.
And to that point, when people are speaking to you, so once people get through the door of having a conversation, what are the key elements that you listen to? Is it the founder's background? Is it the content? Do they even know what industries they should be pitching?
Yeah.
What are the key things, if you can remember 3 things that really stand out to you when a good founder knows how to speak to you?
So which part do you want to start with? Are you in my office and do we have a meeting set up, or are you literally, you've got me somewhere, maybe we met at a party and you realize I'm in a VC and you want to pitch me? Which one? We can go through both.
Actually, let's start with the impromptu ones,
Yeah.
because I think not a lot of times people get to the VC office.
Agreed.
But a lot of times people get to, hey, you're a startup grind. How do I approach you?
Yeah, I think that one thing is it helps if you know what I invest in. Because if you're hardcore pitching me something in AI or, drones, I don't know. I don't know what you're saying. It all sounds like babble, and I'm really hoping that I can leave soon. So know your audience is the number one thing. So if you know something about me, you know that we invest in commerce. And so if you know, for example, that we invested in Dollar Shave Club or that we invested in Bonobos, it's a good place to start to say, hey, I know you invested in this. I watched that. That's great. I'm looking at a company right now, thinking about starting a company in this space as well. Here's what we do. Tell me what you do, because when you start launching in this whole diatribe about who you are and where you come from and where you grew up, and I want to know that, just not right now. So make sure that we can start on a very clear, concise understanding of why are you pitching me right now at Starbucks, right? Just contextualize it.
I like what you said about those keywords, like using like the companies you already invested in. It's like a job description, right? Two people could apply for the same job, but the person who used the actual buzz key phrases from the job description usually gets a higher chance of getting through.
And you'd be really surprised, even with the emails that we get. I've had, I don't know, too many emails that come with, "Dear Eurie, we love Maveron or Kleiner Perkins." I'm like, great, I don't work there, so delete. Because if you're not detail-oriented enough to think about who you're pitching over email, then how are you going to be a good founder? Like, how are you going to know not only who is going to be interested in your idea, but more importantly, who's the good fit for you as an investor? Because I know that where you all are, it's like any money, whoever it comes from, I just need money. But you get that money, and then a year later, you're like, oh man, I'm really stuck with that investor. And you're stuck with them for a really long time. Hopefully, if you're all successful, the businesses end up lasting a really long time. So before you get super excited about taking money from somebody, just think about who you're getting into business with. And so when you start from that context, like, you have power too. You need to be able to pick who you want to work with. And if you like me, most likely I'm going to like you, right? It's a reciprocal relationship.
And speaking of like how people approach you, like what has been probably a unique way a founder has approached you digitally or offline? Aside from emails, that's sometimes a bottleneck in itself.
It's hard. Emails are hard. Obviously, warm intros are the best way to do it. So if you can find a warm intro, go for it. LinkedIn is really difficult because honestly, I don't check it that often. And then once you're behind, you're just in the slew of a lot of different intros that come. I know a few of you probably LinkedIn messaged me before this. It's hard, right? Because I get too many of them. I think that I think that it's hard to just go cold. I'll be really honest. So the efforts that you guys are making to get networked and to be part of a community, to talk to other founders and see if they have advice for other investors that might be interested in what you're doing. I would say that if there's a founder who makes an intro, I take it. Because this is all about community and all about your network. And so for me to not take meetings is not doing my job. So I need to take meetings with you. Not all of you, just the ones that are in my space and just the ones that seem like there's something, something here that makes sense with what I'm looking at. But I do think that if you've read articles or if you heard a podcast or you know something about what I've said recently, and this goes with any investor, then you have a place to start. And you say, hey, I heard this thing that you were at. I heard, you were at Startup Grind. I was in the audience and I heard you say this. You were interested in that. This is what I'm doing, and I'd love to tell you more. Here's a blurb. And you're short and sweet about it, and so then I can process that and respond accordingly.
Speaking of who's supposed to be speaking with you, when you look at a team, right, a lot of times there's assumptions like the CEO, the founder that pitches the VC. Mm-hmm. But sometimes that might not be the most strategic sense. Have you ever given any recommendations, like maybe it should be the founder, maybe it's the business development person, maybe it's the female, maybe it's the male, those sensitive areas where is it more strategic for a certain person on the team based on gender, title, or creed should be pitching to you, or does it matter at all?
I would not overthink that part because at this stage, I'm understanding that most of you all are in early stages, concept or just getting things off the ground. So there's no one that's more capable of telling your story than yourself. And I think that one thing investors always want to know is why are you uniquely qualified to start this company? And why are you the one that's going to win? And so if you have your business development person do it just because it's a woman and I'm a woman and maybe we'll get along, you're missing the point, right? Because I'm trying to understand why this is the founder to win. And as much as the business development person's important, that person might come and go, but presumably you as the founder is going to stay.
And in terms of the content items in the essence of time, 30 seconds was the best thing to say. Because a lot of times people pack their whole life story in 30 seconds, and you're just like,
so hard.
Don't do that. So what is your recommendation as to if I only have 30 seconds, should I ask you the right questions so that way you see I'm thoughtful and understand what your background is? Or should I just say one thing and say, like, is there a way I could follow up? Because sometimes even say I'm going to follow up via email annoys people even more, actually. I've seen that because it's like more work to deal with. But what's your best recommendation if under time constraints, what stands out?
I would say if you could acknowledge that you understand that I might be interested in this area, and then you could be really concise about what it is that you do and how far it's come or why it's super exciting. And think about it this way. It's exciting to you because it's your baby. Like, is your baby ugly? Is your baby cute? Like, can you just be really honest with whether or not?
Both moms, by the way. So
we're
we
both
should
moms,
say this.
People say, "Oh, your daughter's so cute." I'm like, really? She's cute to me, but like, is she really cute to you? Like, don't lie. So I don't need lies. but I think that you can all understand that if you have something and your pitch is working, then the two lines that you use to describe it to your friends at a party, to your mom, to your grandma, to people who don't know this environment, if you can get their attention to be like, oh, number one, I understand what you do. Because if you tell me a bunch of buzzwords, then I don't know what you do. So make sure that the 3 sentences you pick clearly reflect what you do and hopefully reflect something that's actually interesting and sort of furthering that part of the market, right? It does help if you are clear about what the problem is. And I do have some people who pitch me something where the problem is real, but it's not my problem. Like, I don't personally understand it. And I'll be honest with you, even if you have an amazing company and you should absolutely get funded, you should also know that most partners only do 2, 3, maybe 4 deals a year. So we see 2,000 deals a year. We probably get it all the way down to 20 that we'll really look at, and we end up doing 8 to 10 divided by 3 or 4 people. So it's not that your idea isn't a great idea, and it's not that you shouldn't get funded. You just have to find the right match, and that's going to be on multitude of levels, right? Are you the right stage for me right now? Did I just do an investment? Did I do something in your space? Some people say, oh, I heard you just invested in this beauty business, and I have a beauty business. There's no more beauty businesses coming into the portfolio, right? Like, that's the problem, is that you kind of have to look for, and here's a tip, when you look at all the investors and you see what they are investing in, look for who's invested in your company. Let's call it the beauty business. Someone's invested in the beauty business, so that's Eurie at Forerunner. And who else often invests in and around what Forerunner does, because they're probably also looking for something in spaces that we're looking for. So if they have a hole in their portfolio where Forerunner just invested something, you might have a better shot at that meeting than the one that, I just invested in, so I'm probably not even going to take the meeting.
I hope you guys wrote that down. That was really insightful in terms of like portfolio.
Don't tell anyone I told you.
And in terms of like the funding ecosystem, obviously there's so many different channels of funding now. You have the VC world, you have angels, you have ICOs, you have crowd equity, crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Just candidly speaking, do you judge founders based on their fundraising experience? Like, if you see someone has pitched at event after event, or if you've seen a founder, they haven't raised a dime, like, do you compare and contrast and have those conversations about the background of the funding experience, or
not about the
any
funding.
red flags?
No, not about the funding. I think that the only red flag that would happen is if you have a cap table, capitalization table, which is all of the different investors that have invested in your business. If that's like 40 people deep, that is a mess. That's like herding cats and dogs. And then if I invest, I've got to deal with all of those people. So that's a mess. I don't like that. But that said, you're all scrappy. You're all bootstrapping things. It's your money. It's your friend's money. And so there's a point at which you just got to get it done. And so where you can find the money is where you can find the money. There's a panel, I think, later that talks about bootstrapping and why it's actually better not to raise funding. As much as, I don't want to like not be useful, but I think that those founders who can bootstrap and get their companies up and running have so much more control and power in the conversation, because they say, you know what, I saved my own money, I quit my job, I did this, I got it from zero, and now we have $100,000 in revenue, and this is what I've learned, and I'm now ready to take on institutional capital. Because I think what people don't understand is that they fantasize that getting VC funding is the end of it. It's like the beginning of an ultra marathon that you have to run fast. Like, you can't even just get to the end. You got to get there fast. And so do you want to sign up for an ultra marathon that you have to run in less than a 6-minute mile? I don't think many of you do, if you really ask yourselves that. And so maybe venture is not the right way to do it, and maybe some of these other paths are a little bit more sort of relevant to you.
And in terms of like, founders today, like, do you have any recommendations as to what else a founder should be doing when it comes to raising capital in general? Because a lot of times, we were talking about this earlier, it's like there's such a big startup hype about, if you have the pitch deck, you have the right words, go for it, right? But there usually is other ways to build relationships with VCs, where a lot of times people they start building those relationships before they actually need the money. So that way you kind of have those tangible connections to leverage after on. So how do you navigate the timeline of the fundraising cycle?
So I used to think that was a really good idea, and now I'm I'm pivoting my opinion on it a little bit. So I think it's important to start a relationship, because I think if we've met and I know you're working on something and it's interesting, I want to track you. Be really careful though, because if you're in my inbox every quarter for 2 years, like, it's old news. I've already looked at it for 2 years and I didn't do anything. And so I'm not interested enough. There's a little bit of, like, you need to get some momentum going. You need to hit the ground hard, get my attention, move it along. Time is not your friend. So if you are having a good conversation with a VC, none of this, oh, I'm not fundraising right now, I'm just taking meetings. I'm like, oh, really? You're taking 14 meetings right now with VCs, but you're not fundraising? Like, that's a waste of 14 people's time, and 15 including you. So I think that, you take a couple meetings if you're testing the waters, but make a call and either fundraise or don't fundraise, because I think that if you burn all your bridges, not burn them, but you know what I mean, you kind of have told the story, you have to hope that by the first time I heard the story, and then the next time you come see me, a lot has happened. And then it's a little bit more productive. But don't just continually be in people's inbox unless you have a real update to share.
And speaking of, once someone starts a conversation with you, do you have like a roster checklist of like what you expect to see from the founder? Because sometimes founders have crazy spreadsheets,
Yeah.
some don't, right? So like, what's your tangible list, like executive summary, business plan, video? Like, what do you look for to say, okay, you got your stuff together, you know what your direction is in terms of product market fit,
Yeah.
but also you're fundable at this point.
Yeah. So I think everybody needs a pitch deck. Some people come in and they're like, I don't have a pitch deck. I just want to, get your thoughts on my idea. I'm like, here we go. So we're going to go into storytelling for an hour. And at the end of it, I don't have anything, right? What do you want me to do? Take a bunch of notes and like remember it all? Like, it's hard. So it's great to have a conversation, but it's really professional to follow it up with a pithy 10 slide. None of this 50 slide decks, guys. We VCs don't read very much. So
can you go over those 10 slides though? Like, it should be content heavy, picture heavy. Like, what type of topics in those 10 slides?
Let me know what your business is by the end of it. Because if you've made me flip through 10 slides and I don't know what you do, again, it's a problem, right? Don't waste people's time. So it's, what's the problem that you've got here? Who is the team? What is your solution? How are you doing it? What is your product? What's the competition? What's the market that you're tackling? It's the basics. But if you do that in a very succinct way, then number one, it tells me that you know what you're actually building and where you are in the stage. Like, are you raising funding at the right stage? Are you raising it because, hey, I had the idea, I built the prototype, I tested it out with a bunch of people, and now here are my results, and so this is what I want to do with $1 million. I would do this, this, and this. So we call it a use of proceeds. So if you raised a bunch of money, what are you trying to do with it? Not just what you're going to spend the money on, but what is that ultimately going to get the business? How much further are you going to get along with the business? And what stage will you be at when you run out of money? Because then you need to raise more money. So this goes back to, do you want to sign up for the ultra marathon? Because it's basically a loop. Every time when you start fundraising, you have to understand that the successful moment isn't that you never have to fundraise again. Because if you're successful, you will raise round after round after round to grow faster and faster and faster. We're not in the business of being the last money in, because that would mean that the business is too small. So think about that, and think about, what are you raising for what goals, and where are you going to be by the time you need to fundraise again? And that starts to tell the whole story. And then I would have a financial model. It doesn't need to be, crazy tabs, but understanding, I don't care what the numbers ultimately say, but I do care if you've thought about what the levers of success are in your business. Is it number of products sold? Is it margin? Is it retention? If you don't understand your own variables, then that's probably a problem.
Important to know those KPIs. I guess, since we're almost running out of time here, what has been the hardest piece of advice you've ever given a startup founder when it comes to fundraising? I know that's a loaded question, but in terms.
So I subscribe to the practice of radical candor, because I don't think it helps anybody for me to sort of sugarcoat feedback, because I think you guys spend a lot of time on your ideas. These are your dreams that you're trying to bring to life. And if you talk to people and we don't give you honest feedback, then you're obviously working on things that may be a waste of your time. So the hardest feedback I have to give is when I think that something is not going to work. Now, let's be clear, plenty of people have said that things are not going to work and they've worked just fine. So you have to take that feedback and just listen and absorb what does that mean? Do I need to change my business model? Was it the pitch? Did I get the pitch wrong? I had one woman come in and pitch me 4 different businesses, and I was like, I'm literally 10 minutes into it, I said, I'm gonna stop you because it's not going well right now. And I really like you. I think you have an interesting idea here, but you're pitching me 4 ideas, and none of them seem like the one you want to make, like the business you want to pitch me. So what's going on? And she was like, oh God. Well, everybody tells me I got to pitch this other thing, and that I got to tell you that I'm doing this, and then I needed to do this other thing, and so that's what I'm here telling you. I'm like, okay, well, none of that is about what you want to build. So how am I going to invest in something you don't even believe in? So it was hard, but she left and she said thank you, and hopefully she's out reiterating and focusing on what she wants to build, because regardless, there are going to be more no's in your life than yeses, but you only need one yes.
Very
That
powerful.
round, sorry.
No, thank you for that. That was a really good feedback on that.
Thanks.
And so I know we're running, but can we just really quickly get 2 quick questions because we did start late. So we'll take 2 questions from the audience, okay? Let me tell you the rules, though. Do not pitch your life story. Ask a question, and I'm serious. I will cut you off if you know who I am.
Do one in the middle.
Ask a relevant question that's relevant to the audience. So really quickly, raise your hands. All right, I'll take one from here and then one in the back. Really quickly.
My day?
Yeah, how is your day like?
Oh man. So
Great question.
you mean my professional day, I'm gonna think, because I'm not gonna start with diapers.
Question is, how is your day?
So I will tell you, the most fascinating thing about venture investors is that all day long, I'm fighting fires. Like, you think you're fighting fires? I'm fighting all of the fires with all of you. So every 30 minutes, I have a different fire that I'm fighting. So that's what you're trying to get into in terms of mind space. So what that means is I have a board call, I've got someone who needs to hire somebody or close a main hire, I've got a HR issue, I've got a fundraising thing, reference call I've got to make, I've got a fundraising pitch that I need to make because we're always fundraising as a venture firm. So that's always kind of funny because I'm on your side of the table, half the time. I'm doing quarterly reporting. It's literally, we're the same. It just happens to be that my product is our capital and my support to you as a founder. So if you feel like you're busy, just know I might be busier, just in some sort of scatterbrained way. At least you have one company that you're running.
It's the first time I heard a VC say that. That's really awesome. One more question. Somewhere in the back, right there in the blue shirt. Stand up. Yes, I'm talking to you. Yep.
All I have is a light, so.
You can stand. Blue shirt, you're looking back. Yes.
Oh, there we are.
Thank you. My question is, when we are building the product and we are at the beta stage, what do we focus more on? Going to the VC, because there's so much we could do. Is it building the product, getting a couple of customers in and proving the market's out there, or build the product and then go ask the VC, depending upon which direction is better to go?
I think it's always important to get feedback from your customer. Because if you build your product in a vacuum and then you go and try to get VC funding, the first thing I'm going to ask is, who's your customer? So number one, do you know who it is? And did you build with that person or with that group of people in mind collaboratively? And so I find that people who've actually iterated on their MVPs or prototypes, whatever you want to call them, have a lot more composure when they're fundraising because they know, hey, I tried a few things. Now we know that these are the 2 things that really work, and that's why we're raising funding. Because I don't want to give you money so that you can figure it out, right? I'd like you to come to me and say, I figured it out. Now, and along the way, obviously, we're going to pivot together, but it helps to have shown that you did work before you came and asked for money.
That helps. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Really awesome.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
All right. Before you end, do you want to say any final remarks, any final concluding thoughts to help the audience?
My favorite thing to remind everyone is that this is all a business of networks. Everyone who's in this room is your new network. Everyone who's sitting next to you is a new person that can help you. Maybe they can help you with your pitch. Maybe they can tell you about an interesting person that might want to invest in your business. But I think it's really about knowing that every person that you meet is an opportunity to extend your own network. And I know that I'm only here because I happened to do that when I was younger and I got lucky. But I've been on your side as well. It's hard both ways. It's hard on my side too, but I know it's harder on yours because it's hard to put your heart on a sleeve and pitch your idea like every single day. But that's the job you signed up for. If you want to be a founder, just know that fundraising, pitching you, selling yourself is your life, and that's your job. So get comfortable.
Thank you so much, Eurie Kim. Thank you, everybody. We'll be around for a couple of minutes.